Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Locker. You can sign up on Locker now with the promo code WIRE, W-I-R-E, and you can get a $50 deposit match. I'm Jim Coventry. You can catch me over at Jim Coventry NFL. Again, welcome back to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast reaction show. Can you believe it? Week 6. We'll go over the biggest action of the day. Instant reaction number 1. The Lions destroy the Cowboys. I called 2 boat races today. One was right, one was wrong. This one was right. It was a little different than I thought, but what I said was this. Dallas's defense is terrible. You could run the ball all day on them. Detroit chose to beat them every which way. They ran on them. They threw on them. It did not matter. This was not a contest. It was not competitive. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. We didn't want to see that. We wanted to see a good game. But the problem was, very simply, that Dallas, there wasn't going to be a world where they were going to be able to hang. And I didn't think that was going to happen. So the lack of a running game really hurts Dallas here, because Dallas, we already know they want to pass the ball, right? But the problem with it is when a team knows they have to pass, once you get a lead on them, now you can pin your ears back. In that offensive line, rookie center, not very good. The 2 tackles, not very good. And all of a sudden, it becomes a real problem. As good as Dak Prescott is, and he's a wonderful quarterback, but he really has the deck stacked against him. Look, we like Jalen Tolbert, and we like Cavante Turpin, and we like Jake Ferguson. CeeDee Lamb, because of the attention on him, hasn't had the season he had last year, and it's problematic. But this is what we're looking at right now. But Detroit, we can't go further on this game without first talking about Aiden Hutchinson. Serious leg injury, carted off. That's a horrific injury, and I hope the young man's fine. I hope it's something like, maybe it's something that he can come back in 8 weeks from, get back for the playoffs, because that injury is pivotal, because they already lost their other edge rusher, Marcus Davenport. Not that they were expecting a lot from him. They brought him over in free agency, and he's had a checkered injury history anyway. But Aiden Hutchinson, became a game wrecker last year, and he was continuing that this year. If he ever played a compromised offensive line, he could take away their flow by just wrecking it. Without him, they play a lot of man coverage. Cornerbacks might get better, but without that pressure element, that is going to hurt. The Detroit's, fortunately, they might be the team that could just outscore everybody. There's a real possibility they could do that. And I'm interested to see it, because we saw in this game against Dallas, and this is what we're going to talk about them. They didn't unleash Montgomery and Gibbs. 12 carries each. Monty goes for 2 touchdowns and 80 yards. Gibbs goes for 63. Obviously, Monty's close to 7 yards per carry. Gibbs a little over 5. They're playing Dallas. That's it. But they threw so efficiently. Again, not much of a passer. That offensive line in Detroit is great, right? Goff only throws 25 passes, but 315 and 3 touchdowns. Superlative performance. J-Mo, only 4 targets. Jameson Williams, 76 yards and a score. Fortunately, garbage time, they get Amon-Ra St. Brown touchdown, because somebody had to be left out. There were going to be so few passing attempts, and it's like they made sure they got him something. And so St. Brown goes 4 for 37 and a touchdown. He almost got left out. We're glad he didn't. So at least he gets his 12.7 PPR points. Sam Laporta, 1 target. But guess what? He rumbles for a 52-yard touchdown. So even Sam Laporta, his best fantasy day of the season, right? That's like 12.2 PPR points. It's got to be his best game of the season. You'll take it. You'll definitely take it, because you were looking for Sam Laporta to do something. Tim Patrick's interesting. Tim Patrick is kind of emerging into this pseudo 3-ish receiver on this team. He had a good game before the bye. I want to say it was over 50 yards. And then he comes up with a 3 for 68. Big catch before the end of the first half. So if they get into a shootout where they have to throw, he's another element. Tim Patrick was a good player. He lost 2 seasons to knee, and I think one was an Achilles and one was a knee. Denver cuts him. What were they thinking? Tim Patrick's a good football player, and he shows it. Steps right into this team, practice squad for a few weeks. They elevate him. Productive. The rich get richer with Detroit. So that said, just so excited to see this team. Gibbs, 3 catches for 28. So again, they're not optimizing him as a receiver. So there's that. But that said, exciting game. I'm concerned about the loss of Hutchinson. But I think the Lions might be able to outscore. The NFC right now, look, you got the 49ers, and there are all kinds of stuff going on defensively, and their offense is kind of out of sync sometimes. Minnesota's 5-0, but the last 6 quarters of Sam Darnold, a little bit sketchy. To me, right now, the Lions are, I think the Lions are the team to beat. And a lot of people thought that the Packers are really good too. We'll talk about them later. But I think the Lions right now, this offense can be really special. No more about Dallas. We've said plenty about the Dallas Cowboys. I do think everybody out there will agree with me. Let's get to instant reaction number 2. It is the Ravens hold off the Commanders. Now, I called the Lions. I said, hey, boat race the Cowboys. I thought the Ravens would boat race the Commanders. I said this morning, and I said in other shows, we've seen it over the years. The Ravens play the hot new NFC team. Last year wasn't new, but it's a 49ers. Christmas, they boat race them. We saw the Lions a year or two ago, and the Lions were up and coming, crushed them. We've just seen it so many times. And look, the Ravens scored their points. But Washington kept it competitive. I mean, Washington kept it competitive. So props to Washington. I right now can't say enough good things about them. This was their first, but I really felt it was their first tough matchup. They got beat bad by Tampa in week 1. That was the only playoff team they played. The next 4 weeks were non-playoff teams. So I'm buying into the Commanders a little bit. But as I'm buying into the Commanders, I'm like, but they got to play somebody. And they did here. But they held their heads high. They played well in this game, and they got it within a touch of Terry McLaurin. He didn't get the big plays, but he gets 2 touchdowns. So right now, I can no longer be skeptical about Terry McLaurin. I said, somebody's got to put a safety over the top on him. Well, they didn't give up big plays, but they moved the ball. He got a nice touchdown in the red zone. Real nice touchdown. Terry McLaurin, I'm going to move him up my rest of season rankings. I have to move him probably in the wide receiver 15-ish range. I got to look who's in that range. I don't know exactly what number I'm putting him on. Could be a little higher. It could be right there. But I think we're starting out at wide receiver 15. I think that's a real big deal. So but let's talk about the Ravens because they won the game. So in this game, we have Baltimore, and here it is again. This team is now, we had games where they got it done through the air. Last week against Cincy. Cincy tried to take away the run, right? So they tried to take away the run, and then Lamar crushed them in the passing game. We've seen games where they have had passing success, games where they have running success. This game, we had both. Now, Washington's not a good defense, all right? We get it. We get it. But it doesn't matter because this offense has been great all year. Regardless of who they played, they have found a way to win these games. Lamar Jackson, 26 pass attempts, completes 20, goes over 300 yards, only 1 touchdown. So what? Because Derrick Henry crushes it 2 on the ground. And they kicked 3 field goals. Now, I would have liked to have seen a couple of those field goals convert, especially one of them when they got down a little closer. Would have liked to have seen him cash that in. Who's complaining? What I had talked about going into this game was, and this had been the blueprint through the first 5. When the running game got going, the pass catchers did nothing, and vice versa. Well, in this game, Zay Flowers had almost all of his 132 yards at halftime. It may have been 120 at half, and he had 1 catch after, which is fine. 9 for $132. So now Flowers has 4 games out of 6 with at least 9 targets. Those other 2 games where they only threw 33 passes, he didn't get much. But Mark Andrews, again, him and Likely had 4 targets, but Andrews got going 3 for 66 and a touchdown. Now, here's the deal with Andrews. This is important. Andrews had 2 goose eggs, the 3 games surrounding it, the last 2 and the one before them. He has at least 50 yards in 3 of those games. The tight end position's volatile. We don't like goose eggs. Nobody likes a goose egg. But Andrews he's had 3 good games. When you're talking 50 yards at tight end, Dalton Kincaid ain't getting many of those, right? There aren't many tight ends hitting that. So it's reasonable enough. And we saw this week Tucker Kraft had the down game. So I think Mark Andrews, I imagine he's rostered in most leagues, but a lot of people, those 2 goose eggs, it may have totally say goodbye to him. So again, if there's any chance, and I don't think you trade for Mark Andrews because I think there's going to be a number of lemon games in there that are going to be problematic for fantasy managers. So I think that's an issue. But if you have them, use them, ride it out, take the lows with the highs. But I think overall, I think you're looking at a 500-yard season. He's not getting the 700 or 800 we normally get out of him. I think we're looking at 500. But that said, if he gets 4 or 5 touchdowns, because those goose eggs are already gone, you can't they're not in the future; they're in the past. And maybe we get a couple more. But I think the fact that 3 of the last 5 games he's produced, I think that's a good indicator that's moving on. That said, I can't. What do I say about Derrick Henry, right? The big dog is amazing. I don't know who's leading the NFL in rushing. He's got to be right at the top. If not, somebody's, he's got to be at the top. But another 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 touchdowns for King Henry. They figured it out. And I did all my crowing in week 1 when I'm like, what are they doing? Week 1, remember Isaiah Likely goes off, Justice Hill goes off. Well, what about Derrick Henry? They're not putting the fullback on the field. They figured that out. I know John Harbaugh got in Todd Monken's grill after week 2. It's like, this ain't happening. We got Derrick Henry, and they figured it out, and they have. Now this offense is going to be so fun to watch. I cannot wait to see how they progress. And if they do play the Chiefs this year, I wonder if Derrick Henry is the difference maker that would finally push them over the hump. Love to see it. Baltimore, like I said, I think I already said this. Jaden Daniels, even in a bad game, wasn't a bad game, 22 rushing yards, so he didn't get done there, but 269 and 2 touchdowns. So that's about 17, 21, 25 fantasy points, right around there. Yeah, right around there, somewhere in that range. I'm not doing the math real well, but it's a good enough game. If that's a down game, yeah. So you have him as a top 3 quarterback right now, and he's done good for the most part, avoiding some hits. So that's been a great thing. So definitely, we're excited. Brian Robinson was out. Austin Eckler, 4 catches, 47. The run game, we knew they weren't going to get going. Baltimore doesn't have to add bodies, and they stopped the run. So there's that. But all that said, standout performance by the Ravens, solid performance by the Commanders, and the Commanders really, now they are going to compete in every game they have. I think they have a great shot at being a playoff team in the NFC. And I don't know what damage they do once they're there. And I don't know if things get figured out on film over time. But don't fight it right now. Enjoy it, because this is fun. This is fun to see Terry McLaurin finally have a quarterback to get him the ball. Because how many years did we say, man, he's got nobody getting him the ball? All right, everyone, let's talk about Locker from the new innovative fantasy app. We try to predict upcoming plays on the field. When I played the Blitz contest on Locker, I love that I could pay attention to the game flow and player usage to make predictions about upcoming drives. The points they could give me a chance to finish the money in this 50-50 Locker contest. Locker has a bunch of different contest structures. They're all centered around answering questions in real time about upcoming plays, upcoming drives, and what have you. More accurate you are, the more money you can win. Now, you can join a Locker League, the RotoWire Locker League, $10. Format simple. You can start anytime you want. You play as many contests you want. Your highest 10 scores, they get counted in the standings. So realistically, start now. You're in great shape. Sign up for Locker now with the promo code WIRE. Get a $50 deposit match. And remember, join the RotoWire Locker League. Showcase your play calling skills with real cash on the line. All right, this is a podcast show. I normally do questions, but somebody did a super chat, so I'm going to answer that one, only because it's in podcast form. Otherwise, normally in these shows, I do answer questions. GVS needs 15 points. Moss, Brown, or Slayton. If you need 15 points, that means the floor is not an issue here. I think that Chase Brown would have the chance. He's found the end zone a number of times recently. Slayton, could he get there? Yes. I think Chase Brown's going to have a lot of yards underneath, and I do think he can find the end zone once. I think he's the best chance of you getting those 15 points. Hope you win your fantasy game. And again, welcome everybody who's here and watching. And again, with this being a podcast, I'm probably not doing more questions, but please hang with me. Enjoy you being here. Instant reaction number 3. Can we start believing in the Bears offense? I think we can start. They had 3 cupcake matchups. I'm not going to argue with you on that. All right. We know the Bears have not had a tough go. They had the Rams, they had the Panthers, and they get the Jaguars. Yeah, easy matchups. But I talked about this last week. What I've seen from Caleb Williams, he gets in the pocket, and when the pressure shows up, spatial awareness has gotten better every week. He knows where the bodies are at. He knows when to dip out. He knows when to throw the ball. He knows when to run. 2 good rushing games in a row, 56 yards in this one. He is showing those high-level traits as to why he was the number 1 overall draft pick. This is a quarterback that you could begin to build a franchise around. He's going to keep getting better. The targets went different places today. DJ Moore, he tried to get him a touchdown. Moore just missed getting over the line, didn't do much. But it was Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen had been a ghost. Didn't have more than 33 yards in a game. He only had 41 in this game, but he scored twice. So Keenan Allen comes up with a big game, probably on a lot of fantasy benches. Again, targets weren't high. It was against Jacksonville. Cole Kmet, 70 yards and 2 touchdowns, caught all 5 targets. So the thing is, see, that's the thing with Williams, though. Romo Dunze had a game a few weeks ago, and now Allen's had a game. Kmet's had a few good games. DJ Moore's had some good games. And so that's the good quarterback, though. He knows his alpha's DJ Moore. But in this game, he didn't have to hammer him with targets. The Bears were in control of this game early. And that was a good sign. And the Bears defense, they said, they were missing players, but they're no joke. And Jacksonville, they scored some garbage time points, whatever. Obviously, they're a joke offense. And so playing the Bears, that was not a good matchup. Bears are one of the best bets of the week. Fortunately, that one worked out. But yeah, Caleb Williams, and it's helping with DeAndre Swift. And the thing I see with DeAndre Swift is this. In the first couple weeks of the season when he was doing nothing, the Bears were stringing out these runs where he had to pick a hole and figure out where to go, right? And he's not good at that. DeAndre Swift has never had field vision as a runner. The Bears are getting him into more one-cut runs. They're defining the hole for him, and they're getting him there. And we have seen 3 good games in a row. And defenses have to respect the passing attack of the Bears now. You can't just blitz Caleb Williams, I think, like you did in week 1 and 2. I don't think that's the case. So we're going to see a growth. I don't know which skill position players are going to blow up each week because, again, right now we're seeing everybody across the board work. But again, very exciting time for the Bears. And again, enjoy the ride. The Jaguars, look, I said it earlier. Lawrence gets you 2 touchdowns. If you start him in a super flex, great. He was terrible. Gabe Davis, I think he had 4 passes in the end zone. He caught 2. He dropped 2. He caught 2 at least, so that's good. But Brian Thomas, 3 for 27. I was a little worried. I figured he'd see his fair share of Jalen Johnson. And the Bears are a tough matchup against the pass. I wouldn't sweat it for Brian Thomas. He's an excellent player. So don't sweat it. Christian Kirk, 3 for 39 on 6. Because Evan Ingram, middle of the field also, he came back in a big way, caught all 10 targets for 102 yards. The big question was the running back. ETN goes down with a hamstring injury. Dearness Johnson gets 1 more touch than Tank Bigsby. There you have it. That's fantasy football. Hot waiver wire out of the week. People are saying, rightfully so, Bigsby's going to have standalone value with ETN. ETN goes down early. Nope. Dearness Johnson. And Dearness Johnson crushes him in yardage. Bears are not a good run defense. Bigsby, 7 for 24. Dearness Johnson, 6 for 28. 2 catches for 16 yards. Fantasy football in a nutshell, right? Figure this game out. Now, we knew Bigsby was not going to keep running for 8 yards per carry. He was going to keep up 99th percentile broken tackle rate. Was going to keep up 100th percentile yards after contact. But he's a good runner this year. We've seen him in the 3 games healthy he played. He was good in every game. Nobody's those level of good 8 yards per. We saw with J.K. Dobbins. He was like 9.9 in the first 2 games. And then we saw we play a couple tough defenses. That went down. All right. Going forward now, Etienne, maybe he misses time. I don't know what they're doing with that coaching staff. They have another week in London. Can they fire their coaching staff with another week in London? I doubt it. So they probably got to keep them 1 more week. That should have ended weeks ago. Should have ended last year. Should have ended maybe sooner. That organization, I don't know what they're thinking. And at this point, we used to blame Lawrence's inefficiencies on the coaching staff, but he's been missing throws. Now, he had some drops against them in this one. But again, Lawrence has not been a good quarterback last year or this year. So fantasy, it's tough. I'm going to go over more of this week's reactions after we take a short break. All right, instant reaction number 4. The injuries. The injuries were crazy. So when we think about the injuries, Chris Olave leaves with a concussion. First drive, I think he caught a pass, got dinged in the head, no call. He gets head-to-head contact, no call, fumbles the ball, they lose it. Should have been a personal foul, neither here nor there. I think Antoine Winfield, is that the one he scooped up and took him for a touchdown? I think that may have been that one. Olave leaves. And here's the deal. Spencer Rattler said he was going to, I'm paraphrasing, he was going to pepper Olave with targets. Bub Means comes into his spot, takes the X roll, 8 targets, catches most of them, has a good game. Bub Means had a decent game. So there was that. So what do we do with that? Chris Olave may miss a game. Bub Means ended up catching 5 of 8 targets, 45 yards, and a touchdown. That was Chris Olave's numbers. Thank you very much. But, it's basically the Bucs are not a good secondary. So there's that, right? And we talk about this game for a minute. I don't want injuries, but we'll talk about that game. Tampa Bay was a weird first half. Rashid Shaheed does nothing, but he returns a punt for a touchdown, so he got you through for fantasy if that counts in your league. Alvin Kamara, again, scored a touchdown, had some targets, but the defense was able to kind of take aim at him. There was a defensive score. The first half was wild, like 27-24. I think that was the score at the half. And then, of course, the second half, all Buccaneers completely shut down the Saints, boat race them in the second half. Baker has a big game. They're two running backs, Bucky Irving and, oh my gosh, Sean Tucker. I think they combined for about almost 300 yards and like 3 touchdowns. Crazy second half. Saints are a good defense at home, right? Not in the second half, they weren't. And this is with, now, I know Mike Evans left for a little amount of time. I don't know how long. I saw him in the field in the second half and then the fourth quarter. So I don't know how long he was out, but he did leave briefly, maybe longer. And I don't know how much Marshawn Lattimore was actually on him, but it was kind of more of the same. It was that weird game where we saw, the Mike Evans not do well against this team. 2 for 34 on 6 targets. And we said, Chris Godwin should eat here. And oh my goodness, Chris Godwin, 13 targets, catches 11, broken tackle on a sideline pass, breaks it for a long touchdown, scores twice, goes for 125 yards. Baker throws 3 picks, but 4 touchdowns at 325. Sean Tucker, it's sad because obviously maybe in the deepest of leagues, somebody started him, maybe with buys and injuries. They picked him up saying you might get some carries. Tucker goes 14 for $136 and a touchdown, 3 for 56 and a touchdown through the air. So that's like 172 yards and 2 touchdowns. Irving, not bad. Irving, 105 total yards and a touchdown on 16 touches. Sean Tucker was looking really good on kickoffs this year. Really good on kickoffs. Like, not a lot of guys are returning these, but Sean Tucker looked really good. And he kind of showed that on the field today. Now, I don't know how long Rashad White's out, but it's going to be interesting to see if Tucker earned a 3-man share, because that's going to be bad for fantasy, because Rashad White's going to be involved because, they love him and he's a pass catcher. But Irving's been a capable runner. He has done nothing to hurt his chances. He's been good all year. He had the fumble in the last game. There's that. So, but that said, you got to see. I mean, did Tucker earn some time? Give me something to watch for fantasy. If Rashad White's out another game, obviously we're looking at a split because they've been doing a split all year. Now, I think they go in. This will be a split again for if White's out. So we'll keep our eye on that. But K. Dotton didn't get the yards, but he got a touchdown. So he's been money in the last 4 games. And, not super ceiling, but as a tight end position goes, he's been a good floor play. The targets have been good. A 6, a 4, a 9, and an 8 in the last 4 games. So after a slow start, he's really, really picked that up. Somebody said White's job loose. Not even close. White already has been phased out. He was phased into a half role already. Bucky Irving cut into that snap share significantly. Look back at the box scores. Rashad White was seeing equal usage for like 3 or 4 weeks. So it is not White's job to lose. White's already lost it. White's a 1A, 1 at best. He is not the one. He wasn't the one since like week 1 or week 2. That ship sailed a long time ago. But if you're watching those games, Rashad White has not been the matter of fact. Rashad White, 10 carries in the last game, 10 carries in the prior game, 6 carries in the prior game, 10. Yeah, he had 1 since week 1. He hasn't had more than 10 carries in the game. While you have Bucky Irving, 9, 10, 9. Yep, same amount of carries. So pretty much the same. All right, back to the injury. Sorry about this. I want to get this done before kickoff. Marvin Harrison suffers a concussion early in that game. And I think the big problem here, and I'm going to talk about my last take, is going to be that Packers-Arizona game. But realistically, Harrison has been great this year, but he draws a lot of coverage. And when he's not on the field, then we end up seeing, all right, Michael Wilson's a nice player. I love him, but he's not going to carry an offense. And Trey McBride's a great tight end, but again, he's not a game breaker. And so then once Harrison's off the field, the defense could play a little more straight, and the Cardinals fell behind, and Kyler didn't have a lot of great looks, and it was a mess. It was just an absolute mess for them. Again, Harrison might not be producing for fantasy, but the attention he draws, it really makes things kind of different for them. Travis Etienne, I mentioned earlier, so I won't rehash this, but he left with a hamstring injury. As we said earlier, Dearness Johnson got more work than Tank Bigsby. Pull my hair out. Oh, I don't have any. So not so bad. But yes, I wonder if he misses time with this. We'll have to see a lot of hamstring injuries this year, right? Start season. Dallas Goedert injures his hamstring like 3rd play of the game. Grant Calcaterra comes in, catches 4 for like 60-ish. Not that I expect Grant Calcaterra to be a thing, but if Goddard misses time, he could see some targets. Produced here. Can't all go to the wide receivers. A.J. Brown back. Yay. Finally needed him back. Goes up for 116 and a touchdown. Jerome Ford, hamstring injury. He leaves, and we see Deontay Foreman step in the role. Nick Chubb, supposed to come back next week, per reports. Not sure. At this point, I get it. I get it that the owner probably feels they got to play Watson because of their contract. I get it. The money and the embarrassment if they traded all this for him and they paid him, and then we get nothing out of him. Isn't this going to be the time to go to Jameis Winston? Nick Chubb's coming back. Can you really put Nick Chubb in a situation where the quarterback is just going to allow everybody to load the box because they're not afraid of him? If Jameis Winston comes in, that gives some more room to Amari Cooper. That gives some room to Nick Chubb. The tackles are back. The interior line's all beat up. The injuries on that line, offensive line, in the last 2 years has just been incredibly horrible. But Jerome Ford suffers a hamstring injury. Again, I hope they go to Jameis Winston. He's not a great quarterback, but he gives them something. He can throw the ball, and that's something DeShaun Watson can't do right now. Dontavian Wicks, shoulder injury, add insult to injury. He had all the drop passes, the inefficiency. Jordan Love missing him on passes as well. And then he suffers a shoulder injury. Watson comes back. Dobbs, we'll talk about the game in a minute. So Tyjae Spears injures his hamstring. Julius Chestnut gets a carrier too. I don't remember, it was 1 or 2. And Tony Pollard, though, continues to roll. Tony Pollard's been a solid, high floor fantasy option in 4 or 5 games. He had 1 bad game. He hasn't had super ceiling. Tony Pollard's like the only thing in that offense right now. They have to get Will Levis out. I don't remember the yardage. I'll tell you what the yardage was. I will tell you the yards. 16 to 27, 95 yards. Touchdown and a pick. I told people about Calvin Ridley. He's going to get targets this week. They said he would. He gets 8 targets. Zip. Doesn't catch 1. Thank you, Will Levis. Mason Rudolph may not be a good quarterback. You got to go to Mason Rudolph. This Will Levis experiment has to be over. Nice man, NFL player, you're a backup. At best, you are a backup. You are not an NFL starting level quarterback. No fault of yours. You're a good man. You're good in college. But this is not where you need to be right now. Instant reaction number 6. The last one. The Packers. Rounding into form. We don't like that Davian Wicks got hurt. We don't like that. We don't want anybody to get hurt in this league. He got hurt. But Christian Watson comes in, and they don't have to throw a lot because they blow out Arizona. Blow them out. No problems at all for them. So in this game, though, Jordan Love throws 32 passes. Not a super amount, but enough. 258 and 4 touchdowns. Oh, my. 2 of them go to Dobbs. I'm glad they got Dobbs back in the fold. I don't know what the deal was there. I'm not going to speculate. I just see on the field. So that's all I care about. Dobbs is a good player. Dobbs has been a very good. He's their X receiver. But they don't use him creatively. They use him like a possession Z, but he's really there. He's the only outside guy they leave outside and they keep him there. But they use him well. And I saw him on a crosser too. So it was nice to get him in the middle of the field. Maybe that was some of the contention. But Dobbs, 4 targets, but 3 for 49 and 2 touchdowns. So very nice to see him get going. Jaden Reed apparently a little bit, I think it was a shoulder, but he played. But I think they didn't overuse him in a blowout win. I think they knew he was limited with the injury, and I think they backed off him. Smart, because they didn't need him. Jaden Reed, 6 for 28 and a touchdown. You'll take that. Christian Watson. They got him on a deep one. They had a safety. I think Budda Baker, they got him isolated on Budda Baker. But that is what Matt LaFleur does, right? He gets you ISO'd on somebody you're not, like a linebacker or a safety. Not in the corner. They get him on a safety. And he get plenty of separation. And yeah, somebody said a decent stiff arm too. Yes. And so it was great to see Christian Watson have 3 for 68 and a touchdown, 4 targets. Again, they didn't have to hammer anybody with targets in this game. I wonder if I had that target total right. Maybe I transposed it in wrong because I'm trying to add up the numbers here and I don't see 32, but they must have gone there. Tucker Kraft, 2 for 13 for one of those days. That's a tight end position, right? If you got your 3 top receivers scoring 5 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns. Watson had 1 touchdown. My bad. Sorry about that. Because Reed had the other one. So yeah, so there's that. So when you got, your receivers are doing that. Yeah, your tight end's not going to do much. Josh Jacobs, he's a floor play every week. He ended up with about 90 scrimmage yards. Doesn't find the end zone again, but fine enough. Caught 3 passes, 12 PPR points. He is what he is at this point. There'll be games when touchdowns fall in, but we talked about this going into the season. He's a good player, but he's not very efficient. he doesn't break a lot of tackles, not high yards after contact. He had that 1 year, is that year where they didn't take his 5th-year option and he went off. But look, the Packers right now, that passing game is looking like it did end of last year. Very exciting times. And if they get Jacobs, just do enough. And he will. Jacobs will do enough. It'll give him some balance. And this is going to be a fun team to watch. They have a great, great set of young weapons. They're all growing. The receivers, the quarterback, they're all growing together. Matt LaFleur, great coach. RotoWire covers all the fantasy sports. You get a free 2-day trial with no credit card needed. You want to check that out. Go over to rotowire.com/pod. Check us out. We want to thank our sponsor, Locker. Sign up for Locker now with the promo code WIRE, WIRE, and receive a $50 deposit match. Thanks to everyone for listening. Come back next week for another edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.